Iguodala. Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. Curry, one-on-one. Irving puts it up. It's good. Kyrie Irving from downtown. The three, steps back, crossover, puts up a three. Rebound James. Seconds. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
Cleveland, this is for you.
Good day and welcome everyone to the Block the Shot to Stop podcast, our weekly NBA Around the League edition. I am Kevin Lynch. This is Tim Daniel. Tim, missed you, buddy. How you doing?
It's been good, man. It's been good. I've done every podcast known to man for a week and a half now. So I said, why not do another?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I appreciate it. I have been a little MIA for the last week. I had a work conference that I was traveling for, got home about 30 minutes ago, but excited to be back and excited to talk about the league. I didn't get to be on the podcast, but I did get to see all the Cavs games on record, and what a season, man. How about the Cavs?
Unbelievable. So I've said a million times that when I came with the idea for us to do this show together, I couldn't have dreamed of this, right? There's just no way. I thought Mobley was definitely going to take that step forward. I thought Kenny Axel was going to make the offense significantly better. But the fact that it's just not only a very good basketball team, but an extremely likable team, a team that's very easy to root for. This rules, man. This is so fun.
It is. And even though this is our NBA weekly episode, we are going to start with the Cavs. And because you know what? They might be the biggest story in the NBA. And
for sure.
We're not even being homers right now, I don't think. Maybe a little. But yeah, no, I want to talk about the Cavs, you know, obviously a lot of winning, a lot of different types of games, you know, different players stepping up, or even, you know, every time one guy has a subpar game, like two others, you know, have an exceptional game. What are your overall thoughts thinking back, especially this last week, Tim, as a win streak continues, now 13-0 to start the season? What are your thoughts on where the Cavs are today?
My thoughts on where the Cavs are today is, if you look at both those games this week, the Philly game and the Chicago game, the first Chicago game before Friday, of course, is that they had every reason to go, you know, tonight's not our night, and you know, it's okay. We've had a great run, and we're still a really good basketball team, and they didn't.
Right.
I mean, Chicago came out and gave them a hell of a game, and they pulled it out. And then Philly last night, I mean, Jared McCain was unbelievable. He was incredible. And Philly, I mean, got up big on them, and they had to put another thing together in the fourth. And this kind of goes back to the Brooklyn game. Basically, every game since Golden State is that they've gotten three really tough battles, and they found a way to win all three of those. And I think that's really impressive. And of course, you're hearing people now kind of be like, well, in hindsight, their schedule hasn't been very competitive. And it's like, last I checked, those guys are also professional basketball players. This isn't This isn't Alabama playing like Appalachian State in the first week of the college football season. This is the league. And so just seeing the contributions they're getting, not just from the core four guys, just kind of seeing all the things they're getting from everybody else in this team. It's just a blast, man. And the thing that just jumps out the most is that if you get them down, find a way to keep them down, because if you can't find a way to keep them down, they're coming at you.
Yeah, you're right. You know, what I was thinking kind of last week, or in particular the Bulls and Sixers game that you were talking about, on a smaller scale, like it's almost like the Cavs are now at the point where they're getting other teams' best shot, like like a defending champion does, you know. Now, like everybody in the league knows they're undefeated. They're up to, when they get up to 10, 11, 12 wins in a row, people have an extra motivation to go against the Cavs. They want to be the team that breaks the streak. I mean, you saw even with the Sixers were so depleted Wednesday night as far as not having any of their three stars, but they played an awesome game, and frankly were kind of playing harder than the Cavs maybe for a portion of that game, especially maybe early in the or I think it was late in the second half. But they just keep finding a way. Like you said, they're now starting to show. They first started out showing how good they were, kind of leading through up to that Warriors game that you mentioned. They were, beating good teams handily. Now they're showing a little bit of like resilience when they're actually being faced with adversity, and and it just continues to be fun.
Yeah, it's definitely the most fun I've ever had doing a show. Is
Yeah.
every night coming on here and trying to find new ways to say, "Oh my God, they're good." You're running out of metaphors, but
Right.
it's a fantastic problem to have.
Yeah, and the one good thing about it is, because you're right, like when you get the same outcome over and over again, what else is there to say? But the thing there is to say is just the fact they get contributions from everywhere.
Right.
Like, it seems like you're right. They have a big four that all could have a rightful argument to be an all-star right now, right? But then, whether it's a Okoro or Dean Wade starting has really complemented that unit when they've been the fifth guy. And then the bench, it seems like every game, 2 to 3 bench guys have an excellent game to really, pick up the starters if they, if they're a little bit off for a portion of the game, or just like change the pace of the game, change the momentum. And I mean, and it's up and down. It's like all 10, 11 guys that are playing right now. I mean, Ty Jerome is a full-on cult hero in Cleveland right now.
TJ Maxx, yeah.
Yeah, TJ Maxx. Yeah, Karis LeVert is, he through 13 games, might be the best season of his career, just as from an efficiency standpoint,
For sure.
and from a winning standpoint, from a defensive and contributing on rebounding and playmaking and all these things. He's always been an excellent scorer, but I think as an all-around player, this might be his best season. And so that's really the thing that's most fun about the Cavs. I mean, it's amazing to like follow a LeBron or a Jordan and marvel at them every night, but it's a different kind of just fun when it's like all these different guys chipping in different ways.
Yeah, and I know the common denominator in the point I'm about to make is Kenny Atkinson, but it does remind you a lot of that Brooklyn team he had, that kind of, the D'Angelo Russell season, the season when we thought maybe he will be the guy who was the number 2 pick in the draft. And that team wasn't as good as his Cavs team, talent-wise, 1 through 12, but they always found ways to win. They were always having fun on the sidelines, and this team is in a situation where everything just seems to be going right, and they're never out of it. And I think in the case of Donovan Mitchell, the fact that he's elevating his game even higher at this point in his career is so impressive. And he's always been a good passer, but he's become a great playmaker. He's an assist away last night from a triple-double. You can make the case that across the board, this is his best season of his career, and he's an all-NBA guy, an all-star.
And you could do that certainly for Mitchell, and maybe up and down the roster with just about every guy. I know we just pointed out a couple of them, but I don't know if there's a guy in this roster that's not having their best or close to their best season in the NBA. And I think it speaks to, you're absolutely right about Kenny Atkinson and what he has done, both from a culture and a scheme perspective to put this team in a good place to win, and just like the buy-in from the guys and the kind of the collaborative effort they have towards, the greater good of winning. It's a lot of fun. And that was the winning. That's a question I wanted to ask you, because I don't know if you've noticed, but in the last week, I think particularly it was leading into the Sixers game, because there always has to be a story. It started to swell, like, should the Cavs just lose a game to get this over with? So you don't get obsessed with this win streak, maybe have guys playing when they're injured and should be taking a night off. What do you think about it? What do you think of the concept of, as this winning streak builds and builds, it could almost be counterproductive to the Cavs?
I kind of disagree, because the team that's closest to them is the defending NBA champions.
Yeah.
And it's the team that realistically everyone thinks is the best team in the league. Yeah. And you want to try to have as much gap as possible between you and them. Mm-hmm. And yes, looks very likely both teams are going to have home court advantage come April. Mm-hmm. But in the sense that, if that series goes deep, the way both teams are so talented, you get to 7 games, you would much rather have that game 7 in Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse than at the Garden. Yeah. And I think that matters. So when people say, well, they just need to lose a game. I understand it. I don't necessarily feel like they're playing like we have to stay undefeated. I think they're kind of just picking their spots when they have to take games over. So I'm not worried about it. We all know it's going to happen. It's been fun to talk about it not happening, but I don't feel like it's something where it's going to be a detriment to them. This isn't college basketball where you don't want to be undefeated going into March Madness.
Yeah, I agree with you, and for maybe slightly different, or at least like additional ways about, saying the Cavs should just lose a game, like, you know, they're putting more pressure on themselves with the winning streak. Winning's fun. Isn't winning why we do all of this?
Yeah,
you know,
right.
and you know what else is, like, life is short. Enjoy this. This is one of the best streaks in Cleveland Cavaliers history.
The best one.
Like, yeah, like just enjoy the ride. And yeah, they'll probably lose a game and it's not gonna be the end of the world when they do, but like, just enjoy. Don't start focusing on doomsday scenarios. What if one of the guys gets injured? You know, what if, you know, they're too worn out at the end of the season because they're playing, playing so hard all of these nights. Like, just have fun, ride the wave, and let's, see where it takes us.
Yeah, and this is also still, let's be realistic, Kevin. I mean, as great as this is going currently, the shadow of LeBron James still is very much over the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Sure.
And it's a team it's a franchise that's really tried to separate their identity from him. Not that they dislike him. They definitely are going to, I mean, we all know that he is the greatest Cavalier to ever play. And there's probably not a close second. And so it's kind of, they're at the point now where this is kind of trying to move past that. This is trying to move on from the LeBron era. There's no speculation that LeBron James has come back to the Cavaliers at this point. There's no, I don't know, maybe if the Lakers lose a couple of games next week, maybe we'll have that conversation. But I think we're at this point now where this is finally them getting out of the dark cloud. And I shouldn't say dark cloud. That's not the right word because he brought so many wonderful things to the franchise. But they're finally separating themselves from the LeBron James portion of their franchise history. So I want to just kind of take every second of this and enjoy it because realistically, other than the LeBron era, probably the most fun the Cavs have been, at least in our lifetimes.
Yeah, I think what you or what I thought of is they're stepping out of LeBron's shadow because his shadow, his presence is still over this franchise. And it should be because, like you said, I'll go a step further. I think he's the greatest player to ever wear an NBA uniform, let alone a Cavs uniform.
Sure. Agreed.
So, like, enjoy it, man. Like, enjoy it. Like, celebrates how well the team's playing, how well together they're playing. And don't like worry about how any, negative effects this could happen, and just kind of, like I said, ride the wave of the season because the way this is going, not only the winning, but the way the team is playing so well together, the energy and enthusiasm that's around the team. Like, I think this is all of this is building towards something good instead of like, something that could hurt them.
Yeah, I would much rather have the conversation of could they catch the 73-9 Warriors more than, well, what if somebody gets hurt? And especially because, let's be honest, it's the league. At some point, they're going to have a stretch where they lose 2 or 3 games in a row. Yeah. It's just inevitable in the NBA.
Yeah.
But when you watch this team currently, you don't see this team and think, well, they're definitely going to have a 6 or 7 gamer in there at some point. Like, no, this is a team that probably at worst will probably have a 3-game losing streak.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right, man. And like I said, Cavs fans, don't worry about it. Don't start thinking guys should take the games off. We should lose a game. Let's just enjoy it. Enjoy this winning streak as long as it lasts. And then when it's done, enjoy a new one starting. Basically.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
So, well, with that, since we are NBA Weekly, we're going to look around the league and kind of what's going on in the NBA, and more so than what's happening on the floor. Something that really caught both of our eyes this week was an interview that Brian Windhorst did on Thanasis Antetokounmpo's podcast. I did pretty good with that. I was actually worried about saying it.
Yeah,
so it was a really just out of nowhere interview that Windhorst went on there and had a quote that I would say left like tremors through the NBA landscape. Like, it didn't blow up quite as much as I thought it would, but kind of paraphrasing, Windhorst is talking about like the NBA media and the NBA media not being in a good place, and that everything the media is doing and what the media companies want them to do is focused on clips. They want the best social media clip, they want the soundbite, and they're not doing the storytelling anymore that really helped build up the league, build up players. And I'm interested in your thoughts on this, but I tend to agree with a lot of it. And not only do I think Windhorst is right about the NBA, I think you could just parallel this in society. I mean, everybody wants to know what is the coolest thing I can see that lasts 30 seconds or less, right? Instead of learning about something that's like truly, captivating. And it makes me think like, how can we kind of reverse course with this and focus a little bit less on the clips and the sound bites and that stuff, and more the storytelling of like individual players, teams that, like that's the stuff we grew up on.
Yeah, I completely agree with this. Honestly, I really do. And I think that's the reason when I saw it and I read it and I listened to it, I reached out to you and said like,
Yeah.
hey, have you seen this? I mean, the biggest example it's the obvious one. It's, you go somewhere, you grab a beer, you're talking to a buddy, you meet somebody, you're like, yeah, I'm into the NBA.
Yeah.
What's the first thing they ask you? LeBron or Jordan? And you're like, Michael Jordan has not played professional basketball for 23 years.
Yeah.
So we don't have to do this conversation. And you hear it everywhere. I mean, you can turn on ESPN first thing in the morning and there's Stephen A. Smith talking about why LeBron's the second best part to ever play. But it could be a conversation about like Bronny having half a G League schedule. It turns into Michael Jordan versus LeBron. Like that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Yeah. And I think Wendy's the best person to talk about this because he's the guy who's seen it all, right? I mean, he's the guy who has like got his gig by sitting outside the Akron airport watching teams fly in. And that was storytelling. That was epic storytelling. He wrote an amazing book called Return of the King. It's one of my favorite books of all time, talking about when LeBron went back to Cleveland, they won the title. And this is not just to kind of make this LeBron centric in this conversation by any means, but it really is at this point now where it's like, so let's take, I know you want to talk about it a little later, but just to kind of get real quick to it, let's take Golden State and Dallas the other night. First game of the NBA Cup. It's Curry versus Klay for the first time. And, it's like, well, for Klay, it's coming back to Golden State and this is going to be a really cool moment. And everyone's like, oh, he wants to get back at them. He wants revenge. And it's like, maybe he does. And I'm sure he does. Yeah. But the conversation should be, wow, that was a really great game. Those two guys showed out and not like Klay leaves a bitter taste in his mouth.
Right. Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And, it's not why we started this podcast, but like, it's kind of a cool thing that I think we are zagging a little bit in the fact that we're like, let's go cover this one team inside and out and make it like a fan podcast, basically, where, we're pretty knowledgeable basketball guys and like to talk about, that stuff. But at the end of the day, we're just celebrating a really fun team to watch and something that we love. And I think that in our own way is a version of what Windhorst was talking about, that we need more of that in the NBA and we need more of that in life, to just like find the things you really love and throw yourself into them and don't worry about like being cool or like the sound bites, the social media clips, and just kind of enjoy the story. Right. And it makes me even more thankful that we started doing this together.
Likewise, man. Likewise. And I think another example, non-sports related, like you said, is look, my favorite superhero of all time is Spider-Man, right? Like he is tattooed on me.
This is a zag, but go for it. Please, the floor's yours.
When I saw No Way Home, I didn't leave there going, was it Peter? Was it Toby? Was it Tom? Or was it Andrew that was the best Spider-Man in that movie? I went, holy crap, we just had that movie where all three Spider-Men are together. We're like 3 years in, right? We don't have to say spoiler alert anymore, do we?
Right.
But like,
nah.
But yeah, it's like, it's always the conversation is like, what was better? Where instead of it being like, how cool was the story of bringing all these villains back and the three Spider-Men that we grew up loving and all these movies had to come together and fight all these guys, instead of it being like, Tom Holland was better than Tobey Maguire. Like, don't care. Don't care. Maybe that doesn't really make sense, but in the sake of the world, it's something we keep running into.
No, I get it. And totally my thought of this as I digested this article from Windhorst, where my brain went to was Zach Lowe. And Zach Lowe and Brian Windhorst were very close colleagues. At least it appeared so. We don't know them, but like appeared to be very chummy, close colleagues at ESPN. And to Windhorst's point, ESPN laid off Zach Lowe, who in my opinion is the best NBA media guy out there, and kept Kendrick Perkins. I mean, sorry, Kendrick, yeah. But like, and that is the content that they want to put in the universe because, and they probably have reasons that that's what gets better ratings and everything. And I don't think there is a universe where any NBA season should go by with Zach Lowe being unemployed and not following it. it. So that's where my head went, that Windhorst was thinking like we're, kind of, getting rid of the storytelling, getting rid of people who are super talented at doing the storytelling like Zach Lowe in favor of all these like, talking heads that just get clicks.
Yeah, man. And I think that you and I have both been pretty open about our love for road tripping and Club 520.
Yeah.
Because it's not just like they do make clips.
Yeah.
But the clips are great conversations.
Yes.
And it's two guys, particularly in Richard Jefferson and in Jeff Teague, who have amazing storytelling while also entertaining you and telling you about basketball.
Yes.
And I think that's exactly what I look for when I listen to podcasts.
Yeah, I agree. I was listening to Club 520 today, and Jeff Teague is quickly becoming my favorite NBA media guy. Just what a storyteller. And he was telling a story today about how he, like, when he signed with Minnesota, he was like, I didn't really want to go there. They didn't really want me. I don't know why they did it. And telling this whole story about like how his agent basically signed the contract without him because it was the most money he could get. But like stuff like that is so like interesting. It's behind the scenes stuff that we don't really know about or wouldn't otherwise know if not for people telling us the story that, whether it's about an actual game or all the things that go around the game. So I'm with Windy at this one. I think you might be a bigger Windy fan than I am. I don't dislike him anyway. He's just never my favorite.
Sure.
But I think he's right on this. I don't know how, but I would love to see it kind of go back to he quoted in the article like Inside NBA with Ahmad Rashad. That show, I watched that show religiously growing up.
Same.
Like, if we could get something like that back, opposed to, some of the media stuff we have now, the way we, consume NBA, God, that would make me super happy and make my wife probably unhappy because then I'd just be on the couch every Sunday morning watching it.
Yeah, I think I know you and I had different opinions on the launch of Starting Five in the sense that, but I really ended up enjoying it because it was a lot more of just like this is their daily life. It didn't feel forced, like I definitely had the possibility of being so. And I think that when we kind of have those things where it's like it's behind the scenes, the guys are also mic'd during games, so you can kind of hear what they're talking about with their teammates. That's the stuff I really want instead of just like Klay Thompson dropped 30 points and missed the game winner. Is he a bust? Is he a bum? Is he washed?
I agree with you. My thing with the Starting Five, and I enjoyed it as well, but I like documentaries where you're following the group or the team without like, the individual people being as much involved and constantly being interviewed, throughout the documentary, so to speak. That's why I loved, we talked about maybe in the off season, we'll do a rewatch of the 2008 Olympic team documentary and give all the takes that we've just given to each other. But something like that, a documentary, I almost like documentaries after the fact than following them while something's happening. And when you can go kind of back and tell the story from the beginning and you kind of shape the story to how it, concluded basically. So but I'm not against it either. I'd much rather have the Starting Five than a lot of other things, nowadays. But with that, so we'll make a pledge to one another, and I'm sure Skylar would be it as well, that we're going to try and do a little bit more of that, do just, make this fun, tell the stories, react and try and in kind of a wholesome and celebratory way to the Cavs, especially, and the NBA, because that's what it should be. If you're not having fun doing it, you should go find a different hobby.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
So with that, you brought it up briefly, but we're going to talk about the NBA Cup more. I know the first games were this week, but we want to let it play out a little bit and not be so reactionary after the first games. But we should touch on the Mavericks and Warriors game from this week. It is a really big story. Klay going back to the Warriors is the biggest star to return to a team in a while, from as much as he accomplished there. The fact that a lot of the main players that he achieved those things with are still there. The fact that it was as much success as they had, it was kind of contentious last year, it seemed, and left kind of on a bitter note. But the most important thing, Tim, that was an awesome basketball game.
So good. And it's exactly what if you're trying to make this thing happen, if you're trying to get people behind it, that is the kind of game you want right there. So it was awesome. I thought that the fact that both teams just played like hard as hell, it was super competitive. It was great, man. I thought that both teams really had their moments. Those two particularly going against each other for the first time in a game format instead of just in practice or in USA basketball, like Klay said in his presser, was really neat. Just really fun. And those two dudes brought it. And other guys had their moments for sure in the game, don't get me wrong. But the story was Klay versus Steph.
Yeah.
It was the Splash Brothers matchup. And Klay watching Buddy Hield play Klay Thompson on the other side there obviously makes it really interesting. But just a great game, man. Just a really great game.
It was. And this Warriors team, they're a lot of fun. They're not like, 2017, 2015 Warriors fun, but they're a lot of fun. And it's great really around the league. The three biggest stars we have and have had for like 15 years are Steph, LeBron, and Durant, right?
Yeah.
I think that for the most part, it would be indisputable.
Yeah.
And all three of them, I know Durant's out a little bit with an injury, but like they're all on winning teams. I think they would all be on a top 4 seed if the playoffs ended today, or if the playoffs started today, I should say. And this could be the last hurrah as far as at least all three of them go as being relevant in the NBA. And that's what I'm enjoying. I mean, we've said together before, the most fun thing in basketball for the last 15 years is Steph on a heater. Like, it's so much fun. And to see those guys not only still playing well, but with good enough teams around them to still be relevant in the NBA as far as, seeding and playoffs and all that goes is really fun. It's one of the things outside of the Cavs. It's one of the things I've kind of hung on to the most to start the season.
Yeah, V2 for sure. After the Cavs game last night, after Scott and I did the show, I watched the second half of the Lakers Grizzlies game.
Yep.
And just watching LeBron, third game in a row, get a triple double, coming off of the night before, watching Steph Curry bury another team with a 3 and have his like immediate excited reaction he always has in those big moments.
Yeah,
it's just really fun. And like you said, it stinks Durant's out for a little bit, but the caliber of play he had before his injury is unbelievable. And I think that's what kind of makes this league so beautiful, right? Is that we're talking about the guys who are the 3 biggest players of the 2000s still playing at high levels, while we're also ushering in this brand new era of guys who are really like establishing themselves as well. So it's awesome.
And even with those guys, if you look at the teams they're on and everything, I think the league is going back to more team play, ball movement, balanced, offensive attacks. Most players or guys have to play both ways. Now, nowadays we're, kind of that started with when LeBron went to Miami, the big 3 era for a good, 10, 12 years, where you just needed 3 stars and they'll figure it out. You just fill in whoever around them. It seems like now they're going back to, more of the balance. For me, the benchmark of that is always the early 2000 Spurs.
Yep.
They just had, all those stars that were so good, and then brought in all the right guys around them to just make basketball beautiful. Like I was actually watching some clips of them this past week, and the ball movement, they were showing like how many passes the Spurs would make without a dribble. And like they showed offensive possession after offensive possession where they do 6, 7, 8, 9 passes without anyone dribbling the ball. And everyone moving. And that's one of kind of bringing it back as we get towards wrapping up, bring it back to the Cavs. That's the thing I like the most about the Cavs team. I know you were talking about Mitchell and you wouldn't be wrong picking any individual player or Coach Atkinson or anything is like the thing that's drawing you in the most with this Cavs team. For me, it is the ball movement on offense and the unselfishness. Like the fact that every guy on that team plays hard on defense, every guy on that team is willing to make the extra pass up a good shot so their teammate could have a great one. And the thing I know we've caught on several episodes is just the assist numbers, how many assists they have per field goals is just, it's a thing of beauty. It's back again, it's kind of back to the early 2000s Spurs and teams around that time. The Nash Phoenix teams were like this too in their own way, where, less dribbling, more passing, excellent shot selection. And that's, what I love. And I feel like as long as the Cavs do this and stay relatively healthy, I don't see any reason that they can't be at minimum a top 2 seed 55 plus win team.
Yeah, it feels like that's the trajectory at this point. It feels like that's kind of your best bet. And I completely agree. And you kind of mentioned not only the passing's unbelievable, the things they do, but their ability to force turnovers and score off turnovers is also a thing that just makes it so fun.
Yeah.
They kind of like, I love transition basketball. It's like my favorite thing to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And they're pretty darn good at it. They don't play at the fastest pace, but if they can get the ball away from you on defense, there's a good chance they're going to score. So,
well, you don't lead the league in scoring without being good in transition, right? Like they might not do it the most, but they do it incredibly effectively. And
exactly.
And so, when you combine great ball movements, contributions from everywhere, and then taking advantage of your transition opportunities, that's how you get to be averaging. I think they're at 124, 125 points a game right now. And yeah, what a fun season for the Cavs in the NBA. I'm having a great time with it. Me
too.
Hope, and as a PSA to everybody, people aren't gonna like this, but like the NBA is more exciting than football right now. There's only like 3 good quarterbacks in the whole NFL. Like games are kind of hard to watch.
I agree.
NBA games take less than 2 hours. Give a game a shot.
Yeah.
I'm going to call out one guy. I never watched SportsCenter, but was because I was in a hotel this week, and they had Herm Edwards on, and then they started showing NBA highlights, and he did the whole thing about how he hates the NBA because they play the game this way, but he hasn't watched the NBA in years, like thing. And I'm like, everyone who thinks that way, give the NBA a shot right now. I'm telling you, guys, the game is faster and more athletic than maybe ever before.
Absolutely.
And you should, if you are sour on the NBA because of some past experience, I would highly encourage you to give it another shot nowadays. And watch the Cavs. Make the Cavs your team.
Yeah, for sure. If you're going to jump on a bandwagon, that's not just because they're 13-0, but just because they're incredibly fun to watch.
Yeah. For sure. Tim, you got anything else before we get out of here?
I don't think so, man. This is a lot of fun. Thanks for putting this together. It's been a really fun couple episodes. So back at tomorrow night.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tim and I, we're going to continue to do this weekly. I'm actually moving next week, so I'm not sure what day I'll get to it next week, but I will have an episode out. And we're going to start, I would say, in the next 2 or 3 episodes, like incorporating some guests on people who follow other teams, when they're playing the Cavs, or maybe we'll bring in a couple like Cavs fans. Maybe we'll put it on the social media if like some super knowledgeable fan wants to come on and talk to us for a few minutes about Cavs. We'd welcome you on. So with that, for Tim Daniel, I'm Kevin Lynch. Thank you for tuning in to the Block the Shot Stop podcast, and go Cavs.
Go Cavs.